Can Zhen Huan, blessed with both beauty and talent, truly outshine all in the imperial harem and enjoy everlasting favor? Chang'an Palace and Tongli Palace were not far apart. Traveling in a palanquin with Xianling, they approached and saw from a distance that the entire Chang'an Palace was brightly lit, as if it were daytime. The principal consort of Chang'an Palace, Feng Shui, had received the news early and was waiting outside the E-gate with the consorts and palace staff. Upon seeing the imperial carriage, they hurriedly knelt down to greet it. Xianling said rise, and then asked, "How is it?" Feng Shui replied, "The imperial physician has been treating her inside, and consort Hui has not yet awakened." She paused and then said, "I have sent someone to inform the Empress Dowager." The Empress should be asleep by now. Send someone to tell her she need not come." "Yes." Feng Shui responded promptly, and a young eunuch quietly withdrew to relay the message. Xianling said to the consorts, "Since the imperial physician is here, it's not good for so many people to crowd in. You all should rest for now. Shui and consort one will come in with me." The main hall of Chang'an Palace was Feng Shui's residence, and Mei Zhuang's kunjitang was to the west of the main hall. The imperial physicians knelt hurriedly upon seeing the emperor, filling the room. Xianling waved his hand for them to rise, and I could no longer restrain myself, anxiously asking, "What is the condition of consort Hui?" The leading physician, Dr. Jiang, replied, "To the emperor and consort Huan, consort Hui is no longer in grave danger. She was just frightened by inhaling water, so she hasn't awakened yet." Hearing the physician say this, I finally relaxed my fists, which had been clenched tightly all the way, now loosened, the knuckles slightly whitened from the pressure. Dr. Jiang saw Xianling grunt and continued, "We have prepared a prescription, and if consort Hui follows the treatment, she should recover quickly." However, Dr. Jiang hesitated slightly. "However what?" the emperor demanded. "Do not hesitate in your speech." Dr. Jiang nodded and said, Yes. It's just that the consort was greatly frightened, and it may take some time for her spirit to fully recover. In that case, you must take extra care in attending to her and not be negligent." The imperial physicians nodded repeatedly and withdrew when they saw Xianling had no more to say. Entering the inner chamber, Mei Zhuang's personal maids, Kaiwei and Balan, still had tear stains on their faces and were hurriedly changing Mei Zhuang's wet clothes and wiping her forehead with warm water while kneeling beside the bed. They quickly paid their respects upon seeing us enter. The three of us stood by the bed. Xianling and Feng Shui were composed, but I couldn't help but lean in to closely examine Mei Zhuang. Mei Zhuang had already changed her clothes, but her hair was still wet, leaving a dim and disordered watermark on the fragrant-colored soft pillow beneath her neck. Her complexion was pale and bloodless, which, against the backdrop of the purple-red bead curtains and brocade quilts, gave her an oddly pale and greenish appearance. Because she was unconscious, the paleness seemed ephemeral, like a veil laid over her face, fluttering uncertainly. A drop of water slid from the fringe on her forehead, directly down her cheek, and hung on the golden bead at the end of her earring, barely moving and not falling off, trembling slightly. This made Mei Zhuang seem like a withered leaf lying amidst the luxurious brocade, utterly lifeless. My nose tingled and my eyes were already wet. Feng Shui, always dignified and self-controlled, was moved by Mei Zhuang's condition and gently wiped away her tears with a handkerchief. Xianling remained silent, merely casting a cold glance over the servants inside the inner chamber, each of whom involuntarily shuddered under his gaze and hurriedly lowered their heads. Xianling then withdrew his gaze and indifferently asked, "How did you serve the concubine?" Though his tone was as calm as usual, and he did not speak harshly, the servants were so frightened that they knelt on the ground. Fearing Xianling's anger, Feng Shui quickly turned to the servants on the ground and demanded, "Speak up. How did concubine Hui end up drowning when she was perfectly fine?" Kai Yu and a eunuch named Xiao Shi trembled with fear and crawled on their knees to Xianling, crying, "We really don't know." Feng Shui felt their answer was inappropriate and glanced at Xianling, who slightly nodded, indicating she should continue questioning. Her words now carried a hint of anger. How could such a significant incident occur and the personal servants not know about it? Feng Shui was usually lenient with the servants, but seeing her angry, especially with the emperor present, Xiao Shi was terrified and quickly kowtowed, saying, "It's not our fault. We really didn't know." Last night, we accompanied the concubine to Consort Hua's Mixiu Palace for a chat. On our way back, we passed by Qianli Pond. Since the concubine always feeds the fish there, I went to fetch some fish food. But halfway there, I heard shouts that the concubine had fallen into the water. And where was Caillou? Caillou sobbed. Consort Hua's maid Xia mentioned they had some fine ink suitable for the concubine's use, which she had forgotten to give earlier, so she sent me to fetch it. So you mean to say that both of you were not by the concubine's side when she fell into the water? Feng Shui asked, then sneakily glanced at Xianling. Xianling's gaze sharpened, and Feng Shui quickly lowered her head. Just as she was about to continue questioning, someone outside announced Consort Hua's arrival. It was no surprise, as Mei Zhuang's drowning site, Qianli Pond, was only 100 or 200 steps away from her Mixiu Palace and within her palace's jurisdiction. Being the most honored consort beneath the empress and responsible for assisting in managing the 6 palaces, she naturally came to visit. Upon seeing Xianling, Consort Hua greeted him with a charming smile and a graceful salute. Xianling asked, "Why have you come out so late at night?" Consort Hua looked troubled and said, "I heard about concubine Hui's drowning and was so anxious I hurried over. Is concubine Hui feeling any better?" Xianling gestured towards the bed. "Go have a look." Consort Hua approached and began to sob. How could such a beautiful person suffer like this? Feng Shui consoled. "Sister Hua, don't be too upset. The physician said she'll be fine once she wakes up." Consort Hua wiped her nose with a handkerchief, then turned to Caillou and Xiao Shi, scolding. "How could you serve your mistress so poorly, causing such a disaster and worrying the emperor?" Xianling gave Caillou and Xiao Shi a cold look and slowly said, "Useless." Hearing this, Consort Hua quickly said, "How can such servants continue to serve concubine Hui properly? I fear more misfortunes may follow. I suggest sending them to the penal servitude." A chill ran down everyone's spine at the thought. Servants sent to penal servitude suffered terribly, often dying from torture or committing suicide within a few months, with few surviving. With Consort Hua's decree, there was no hope for Caillou and Xiao Shi. Caillou and Xiao Shi's words left me with a swirling suspicion. Xiao Shi aside, Caillou was a servant who had been with Mei Zhuang since before we entered the palace, almost like a part of her. Losing her would indeed be a significant loss. Now, with Consort Hua suggesting such harsh punishment, something felt amiss. Without time to think it through, I spoke out to stop her. That must not be done. Xianling, Consort Hua, and Feng Shui all looked at me at once. I had to quickly think of a reason to back up my objection. Although Caillou and Xiao Shi did not serve Sister Hui appropriately, the incident was unforeseen and not entirely their fault. Instead of punishing them, it would be better for them to redeem themselves by taking good care of Sister until she awakens. Consort Hua looked at me and chuckled lightly. "Do you mean to say, Sister Huan, that crime should not be punished and merits not rewarded? If we let these 2 servants off lightly, wouldn't it set a bad precedent in the inner palace, leading others to think that they can escape punishment by simply redeeming themselves?" I replied slowly. "It's natural that rewards and punishments must be just. However, I was thinking, since Caillou and Xiao Shi have always served Sister Hui, and Caillou was even brought into the palace by her, if they are sent to the penal servitude now, Sister might lack competent attendance for a while, which could be detrimental to her recovery." Consort Hua scoffed. "How can such servants who fail to take proper care of concubine Hui be allowed to continue serving? Sister Huan, you seem too trusting." She then coldly added, "Besides, the incident happened near my Mixiu Palace, merely 100 steps away within my jurisdiction. How can I easily let this go?" The more I listened, the more inappropriate it seemed. I countered, "It's only right that rewards and punishments be fair, but if you execute them, people might think the issue lies with Mixiu Palace's proximity to the incident, casting a shadow on your dignity, rather than being solely about concubine Hui's drowning. Taking the lives of 2 servants is a minor matter, but harming your reputation is significant. Please reconsider." Consort Hua's eyes flashed with sharpness, and she bit her lip in thought. I looked at Xianling, knowing that if he didn't speak up, my words would be in vain. As expected, he said, "What Huan has said makes sense. Let's spare them for now. If concubine Hui does not wake up, sending them to the penal servitude can wait." With Xianling's word, Consort Hua could no longer argue. Kai Yu and Xiao Shi, terrified by our dispute, were brought back to their senses by Feng Shui's urging and thanked us for the grace. I breathed a sigh of relief. Seeing Consort Hua still angry, I thought to turn her own tactics against her. I approached Xianling and whispered, "I have something to say, though I'm not sure if it's appropriate." "Speak." The cause of concubine Hui's drowning is still unclear, but it must have been due to the guard's failure to rescue her in time. Perhaps we should replace the guards at Mixiu Palace with a new batch. If something were to accidentally harm Consort Hua next time, what would we do? Consort Hua immediately retorted, "Didn't you just suggest letting them redeem themselves? Why now replace my palace guards? Isn't that unfairly biased and protective?" I smiled. "Consort Hua is overthinking it. I'm only concerned for your safety. The emperor holds you in high regard. How can we allow such negligent servants to guard your palace, putting you at risk? Besides, replacing the guards is hardly a punishment." Turning to Xianling, I added, "This is just my humble opinion. Please don't laugh at my short-sightedness." Xianling agreed. "You make a good point. I nearly overlooked this aspect. Let's have Li Zhang replace the guards at Mixiu Palace with a more competent batch tomorrow." Consort Hua, unable to hide her displeasure but knowing she couldn't argue further, changed her tone and thanked the emperor. "Thank you for your concern." She then offered, "I've brought 2 fine ginseng roots, excellent for calming nerves and restoring health. They would be perfect for concubine Hui's recovery." Xianling nodded. "Consort Hua, you're always so concerned about the affairs of the 6 palaces. Don't tire yourself out, go rest early." Consort Hua, with her graceful smile, suggested, "The emperor also has an early morning court session tomorrow. It's best not to overexert." Before I left, I had someone start a pot of purple ginseng and wild chicken soup, which should be about ready. Perhaps the emperor could have some before resting. Xianling replied with a smile, "You're always so thoughtful. I'm actually quite hungry." Then turning to me, he said, "Huan, you should join us as well. The cuisine in Consort Hua's palace is among the best in the entire palace." Consort Hua merely smiled lightly. "You flatter me, Your Majesty. Sister, please join us." It was clear she didn't genuinely want me to join. It was just a courtesy for Xianling's sake. Knowing that Xianling would likely stay in Consort Hua's palace for the night, I wouldn't be so tactless. Moreover, I was genuinely concerned about Mei Zhuang and preferred to stay by her side. I thus declined politely. "I'm not fortunate enough to partake in such delicacies. Perhaps the emperor can enjoy my portion as well, to alleviate the longing." Consort Hua said with a smile, "Look at how the emperor spoils Sister Huan, making such bold statements without a blush." Xianling retorted, "I dare not spoil her too much, she's already quite bold. If I spoil her further, she might reach the heavens." I joked, "It seems the emperor has long found me displeasing. Please go ahead, Your Majesty. Overcooked wild chicken won't taste as good. I'd like to stay here to take care of Sister Hui. I really can't join you." Xianling nodded. "All right then. Take care of yourself too and don't tire yourself out." Consort Hua with a smile said, "Then I'll leave Sister Huan and Lady Feng to their duties," and gracefully followed Xianling out.
Follow us to avoid getting lost and enjoy endless exciting stories. For more content, please go to the Story Wall homepage to view more exciting novels.